Hey everyone, it's Marvin. Thanks so much for listening to Books and Boba. I just wanted to take a quick second to remind you that Books and Boba just launched our Patreon to help support our future endeavors. Rira and I have been running Books and Boba for the last 6.5 years, and we've always talked about wanting to do more, including expanding our content offerings, being able to go to book events and do more coverage. And so to help us get closer to those ambitions, we started a Patreon to help us grow and to better support books by Asian and Asian American authors. We are offering 2 tiers for our Patreon. The first is our regular Boba member coming in at $3 a month, which will give you access to our brand new Books and Boba Discord server, so you can engage with your fellow Books and Boba Club members and also Rira and myself in real time. This is where we'll be aiming to move the bulk of our book club discussions, but rest assured we'll still have a presence on Goodreads as well. And our premium tier is our Honey Boba member tier, coming in at $5 a month, where in addition to access to our Discord server, you'll also get access to our monthly Boba Chats, a bonus podcast where Rira and I and some guests will get together each month and have a more casual discussion on stuff that may or may not be book related, as well as answer some listener Q&A. Honey Boba members will also have access to a poll to help decide an official Books and Boba book pick once per quarter. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, support Books and Boba on Patreon by going to patreon.com/booksandboba. As always, Rira and I really appreciate your support. All right, thanks for listening, and I'm on with the show. Hey everyone, it's Marvin. This episode of Books and Boba is sponsored by Maui Theater in New York City and their upcoming production of Once Upon a Korean Time. Founded in 1989, Maui Theater Company is a professional, award-winning, nonprofit 501c3 organization whose primary mission is to develop and produce new and innovative plays by Asian American writers. They're a great theater company out in New York who has distinguished themselves as one of the country's leading incubators of new works shaping local and national conversations about what it means to be Asian American today. Their latest production, Once Upon a Korean Time, is a generation-spanning new journey through the historical and fantastical, mixing traditional Korean fables with the horrors of the Korean War. Daniel K. Isaac's epic new play is a funny and deeply moving analog for the experiences of the Korean American diaspora. Isaac deftly moves his characters through time, tracing the legacies of trauma that are passed down from one generation to the next, and the various coping mechanisms each one uses to soldier on. The show features sea kings, bubbles, tigers, generational traumas, and of course barbecue, and is the professional playwriting debut for Daniel K. Isaac, who previously acted on Billions, The Chinese Lady, and of course made an appearance on a previous iterations of Haikus for Hotties. Previews begin August 23rd at La Mama's Ellen Stewart Theater in New York City, and will be there for a limited engagement until September 18th. So if you are in the New York area or plan to make a trip to New York in the coming weeks, definitely check it out. Tickets are now available at maitheater.org. There will be a link in the show notes, but if you're curious, the website is ma-yitheatre.org. That's right, it's theater with an R-E, so you know it's fancy. Books and Boba listeners can get a ticket at the discounted price of $30 by entering the coupon code Books and Boba, all caps. And if you do attend the show, please let us know. Rira and I are stuck here on the West Coast, so we won't be able to make it, but we do want to hear your thoughts on the play as well. Once again, you can get discounted tickets for Maui Theater's production of Once Upon a Korean Time by entering the promo code Books and Boba, all caps. All right, now on with the show.
You're listening to Whoa! Potluck.
And you are listening to Books and Boba, a book club and podcast featuring books by Asian and Asian American authors. My name is Marvin Youa.
And I'm Rira Youa.
And we are here for our August 2022 mid-month book news check-in, where we go over the latest book and publishing news from Asian and Asian American literature. Man, Rira, I know we shouldn't talk about this on the pod, but
no, I think
really,
we should
really
be
hot.
very transparent.
It's really, really hot, and we just literally spent the last 45 minutes?
5 minutes.
dealing with sound issues. And in the end, we found the cause. Bluetooth. Bluetooth. If you are an audio engineer, or you ever want to work in podcasts ever, and you're having issues with your mic or your sound system not working, just look to see if any of your hosts or guests are wearing like AirPods or earbuds that are Bluetooth, because 99% of the time that is the issue. I say this as a professional podcast producer.
I hate it. Why can't they make technology work? I feel like I've aged 4 years within those 40 minutes or so where we're trying to get my audio to work. Like Zoom wasn't working, Audacity wasn't working, my sound wasn't open. It was a whole mess, you guys. But we are here. And
yeah, we're here. We figured it out. It was Samsung's fault. So, damn you, Samsung.
That's true.
Well, good thing that we record this episode days before it actually comes out. So we're just venting our frustrations here, but it doesn't really affect the cadence of our podcast. So it's all good. Sound issues notwithstanding, how are you doing, Rira?
I'm doing okay. I went to our friends, they call us Bruce's, live recording at Roman's bookstore. They were interviewing Wesley Chu on his new book, The Art of Prophecy. And it was very interesting because they were talking about like the publishing industry and their reluctance to publish like more than one Asian author who release a fantasy title. And I was like, I have a lot of thoughts on this, but I am not going to raise my hand because one, it's not my recording, and two, I just don't want to draw attention to myself. Like,
why burn pod? Just talk about that on this podcast.
Marvin was supposed to go with me, but then something came up, so he was unable to show up. So
I had to. It's my fiance's mother's birthday, and I needed to run over her birthday present before they left for their San Diego trip. And because of a very busy week, I had like a bajillion meetings this week for some reason. I did not have the chance to run down to Whittier until Friday night. So, sorry, Rira. I apologize.
Like,
for
I
leaving
went
hanging.
thinking that I had an ally, and then I was by myself. And I was like, I've been to events by myself. I'll be fine. But then as more and more people showed up to this event, I was like, oh no, my anxiety level is so bad right now.
But you're on home turf. It was at our home bookstore.
It was at my home turf. Yeah. Yeah. But like after the event ended, I just said bye to Phil and I just like dipped out. Like I could not linger to say hi to Wes or to Jeff. I was just like, I need to leave. I can't.
You know, I understand. Like, if anything, these past few years have changed in me. It's definitely made me less of a socializer, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not much of a socializer to begin with. So, like, I did consider, like, not going to the event. And I was like, no, I mean, like, Phil and Jeff, they live on the west side. Like, when are they ever here on our side? This is literally my local bookstore. I should go and show solidarity. So let's just say that I have a great deal of loyalty to our potluck collective. I will always show up and be supportive.
Well, I do apologize for leaving you hanging. I did slack Rira like hours before the event saying, so I need to go run an errand that might take a while, so I don't know if I'm gonna make it. She was very gracious, but I know behind the veil of slack she was cursing me under her breath. But
I was not cursing you. Like I thought about like sticking around too. I was like, oh, that's like the networking thing that I should do, right? But then I remembered that I had to compile the list for this episode and I had not done so already. And it was like 9:00 at that point. So I was like, I need to go.
Yeah, priorities.
I need to grab dinner and I need like maybe 30 minutes to wind down from my social anxiety and then start working on this. So I put our podcast on priority over drinking and possibly socializing and networking with people.
And we appreciate you for that.
You are the extrovert between two of us.
I know.
So.
I did not pull my weight. I
No,
apologize.
you
I'll
did
make it
not.
up to you. I swear.
Yay.
Well, like we mentioned, we are here to go over the latest Asian American publishing news based on book announcements that Rira compiled from Publishers Weekly, Twitter, and other social media sources. So yeah, let's get to it. Rira, what is our first publishing news?
All right. Our first book deal is Levine Querido has acquired world rights to watercress author Andrea Wang and illustrator Youa Vang's picture book, Worthy, the Brave and Capable Life of Joseph Pierce, which is based on the true story of a Chinese boy who was sold as a slave and worked to prove himself, eventually becoming a corporal during the Civil War and later an American citizen, exemplifying the complexity of being Chinese American in the years before and after the Chinese Exclusion Act was passed. Publication is slated for spring 2024.
I am not familiar with Joseph Pierce.
I am not either, but I am familiar with Andrea Wang, who was a guest on this podcast. We talked to her about her book, The Many Meanings of Meilon. And yeah, it's great to see another book. Like this is a nonfiction title, so I think that's pretty cool.
Nonfiction picture book. Watercress, of course, is a book we see all the time being featured in a lot of bookstores in the children's area. I did a quick Wikipedia search for Joseph Pierce, and none of them turned out to be Chinese people. So I think this is probably a story that is very, very hidden in our history. And yeah, I'm personally also curious just to read it because I can't imagine it was easy being an Asian man during Civil War times, right? That's usually like stories from those times are not stories of happy times, to say the least. So yeah, I'm super interested in checking out more as it comes out. All right, next up, Harper One bought North American rights to Michelle Young's nonfiction work, The Arch Spy, the untold story of World War II resistance spy Rose Valland. The book examines the role of French resistance member and art historian Rose Valland in tracking down looted artworks throughout Europe during World War II. She is credited with providing the information that stopped the last train of stolen art from leaving France just before the end of the war. No publication date has been set.
Sounds really cool. But Michelle Young is the founder of Untapped New York, which is a web magazine dedicated to the hidden history of New York City. So she is very knowledgeable in little like tidbit hidden facts about history. So yeah, I've never heard of Rose Valland, but I've definitely heard of a lot of people who made sure that a lot of art did not land in the hands of Nazis and also were able to survive the bombings of World War II by hiding them away. I think it's super important to, preserve art. And yeah, like I'm really interested in reading this. All right, next up, HarperCollins acquired North American rights to Haru, Zombie Dog Hero, written by Ellen Oh, the author of Spirit Hunters and co-founders of We Need Diverse Books. The middle grade story follows a kidnapped dog, Haru, who has undergone illegal animal testing at an evil laboratory that causes a zombie apocalypse. When Haru turns into a zombie himself, it is his love for his human boy that keeps him from turning into a monster and helps save his family. Publication is set for summer 2023.
We all know all you need to survive a zombie apocalypse is to be a good boy, right?
Ellen Oh, obviously, she's been mentioned a lot on our show. Like I mentioned earlier, she is the founder of We Need Diverse Books, and she's been around for a very long time. So we should definitely have her on the show sometime.
We've been saying that for like 6 years. We should definitely work on that. But this sounds really fun. Haru sounds like I'm picturing like a Shiba Inu, but I know that's just like, is that like stereotyping what I think a Haru would look like?
I don't know. There's a lot of different types of Japanese dogs, but Ellen O is Korean, so I don't know if Haru is a Korean name or not. But yeah.
All right. Next up, Penguin Nancy Paulson Books acquired world rights to Family of Friends, a picture book by Varsha Bajaj that celebrates chosen family when a girl's neighbor steps in to help her make her birthday party special when her nanny is unable to attend. Ishaa Lobo will illustrate, and publication is expected for summer 2025. Yeah, there's not much to go by from this description, so I don't know if Nani not arriving is due to like tragedy or unfortunate circumstance or just like neglect. But I do like the story of, like a community coming together to help people. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's the world we live in now, but I don't really know my neighbors. Do you know your neighbors?
No, definitely not. But I did live during a time where that was like the norm. Because like back in Georgia, I lived in a cul-de-sac and everybody seemed to like know each other. And like during Halloween, they would do like these special like Halloween treats drop off, and they'll do like a lot of summer barbecues together. But the problem is my family never participated, and my family was always like, don't hang out with them. Like, we have better things to do. So I was kind of isolated from all of those activities. That's
a bummer. Sound like it would have been fun.
I don't know. Sounds like an awkward social situation where I... like, I'd rather be home playing video games. Thank you very much.
This is true. That's true as well. Just invite them over to play Smash. It's all good.
All right, next up, Knopf acquired in an exclusive submission Temporary Bodies by Anuradha D. Rajurkar, a YA gothic thriller about a teen girl who seeks a fresh start in India after the death of her sister, but discovers that the abandoned building her parents are renovating into a boutique hotel has a dark history as a birthing hospital, haunted by restless spirits and the twisted legacy of colonialism. Publication is set for summer 2024.
Man.
Dude, okay. This is just like a sidebar, but I used to live in a house that was definitely haunted, okay? Like, my room was super haunted. Like my closet door will rattle, and I had like a lot of like night terrors, and there were like sounds of like footsteps in the middle of the night. Yeah, it was like real spooky stuff. And my parents are like, you're overreacting, blah, 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 blah. And I said, hey, why don't we switch rooms? We switched rooms, and then we moved out of that house, like, not that long after. So Asian people were like, if a place is haunted, we usually just, like, bounce. We're not those white people in ghost movies. We're trying to like deep dive into the history of the house. We're like, it's haunted, it's not good, we're leaving.
Man, that sounds harrowing. I don't know what to say.
But a haunted hospital, that's super creepy.
I mean, gothic horror is all about vibes, right? It's like some bad shit happened in this house, that's why it's haunted. But I think gothic horror from the ghosts of colonialism way scarier because those ghosts probably racist, right?
Yeah. Also, why are you renovating a hospital into a hotel? I feel like wouldn't the rooms be super tiny and creepy? I don't know.
All right. Next up, Clarion Books bought world rights to Marzieh Abbas's untitled picture book biography featuring Pakistan's first woman architect, Yasmeen Lari, about how she innovated and engineered zero-carbon, low-cost rehabilitation for villagers. Hoda Hadadi will illustrate. Publication is planned for fall 2024. Another picture book about unsung heroes. This sounds really cool. I know a lot of my friends who are like architects and civil engineers will probably really love a picture book about architecture and civil engineering. I didn't learn about things like zero carbon or green building until much later in my adulthood. So teaching kids early, always a good thing, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And also, the water wars are coming. So maybe the future generation can save us if they learn early.
Or they can just save themselves,
That's true.
In the water wars, it's going to be everyone for themselves.
With that dark thought aside, Next up, Abrams bought Grief in the Fourth Dimension, a speculative YA novel by Jennifer Yu, the author of 5 Weeks, 5 People. After their deaths, 2 teens find themselves as roommates in a mysterious white room, one that shows them their loved ones' lives on a large TV, grants their wishes with a sardonic sense of humor, and reveals an unexpected connection between their lives and deaths. Publication is slated for spring 2024.
Wow. This seems to be one of those books that have a dark premise, but probably ends up being kind of hopeful. I'm expecting a lot of dark humor. I'm expecting a lot of just, it's grief of death, but from the side of the dead. And so probably a lot of catharsis, probably just a lot of, maybe some tears, maybe some dust in your eye. Seems like that kind of book. But yeah, interested in learning more as this book comes out. Congrats to Jennifer on her book deal. Next up, Little B Books have acquired world rights to The Runaway Dosa by Suma Subramaniam and illustrated by Parvati Pillai. A fairy tale mashup of The Gingerbread Man and the traditional Tamil rhyme Dosa Ama Dosai. Publication is slated for fall 2023. This sounds really cute. The Gingerbread Man, of course, is a classic tale of a really annoying animated cookie that runs away from everybody. And I always love to see variations on that theme. One of my favorite books as a kid actually is the Stinky Cheese Man, which is, I don't know if you've ever read this book, Rira. It's the Gingerbread Man, except if he was stinky cheese.
I've definitely seen it as a kid, but I never read it. It was not my brand back then. But yeah, I think the Dosai Ama Dosai, it's a dessert or it's some kind of bread. It's very, very thin, almost like a crepe.
Yeah, a dosa is a crepe with curries and stuff that it's not stuffed with it, but you break it apart and you dip it in various sauces. And that's how it's really good. Yeah. I've had it a couple times.
I'm wondering what it would look like in, illustrated form, because it's called the Runaway Dosa.
Yeah, I would imagine, because it looks like a long burrito if you just look at it from the outside. So I just imagine a long burrito with legs. Will it be upright or vertical or horizontal? Who knows? But who knows? It sounds cute.
Gingerbread Man, obviously it's humanoid, so you could kind of picture it. But Runaway Dosa burrito.
Yeah, that dosa has no chance. It's going to get eaten ASAP by everybody.
Oh, yeah, 100%. All right, next up, Barefoot Books bought world rights to Food for the Future Sustainable Farms Around the World by Mia Wenjen, the co-founder of Multicultural Children's Book Day. And the picture book will be illustrated by Robert Sae-Heng. The book lists 12 ways we can grow food while caring for our planet, from vertical gardens in the skyscrapers of Singapore to ancient terrace farms in Chile. Publication is planned for spring 2023. Like I said, water wars are coming. Teach the children sustainability.
Not if we can prevent it, I don't know. We live in the country that's one of the biggest causes of the water wars, which is now my catch-all for just whatever's to come in the next few decades as we start to really, really F this planet up. We all know it's the children who are going to face the brunt of all this climate change and everything that's happening to our planet. Rira and I will be here for it too, most likely, but not as long as the kids. So teaching the kids about just ways that we can, prolong the descent into water warness or prevent it altogether and just build better habits. I think it's good. They're good lessons to teach, and they're things that, when we were kids, it was all about recycling.
Was it, Marvin? Was it though?
But that was what we were taught, right? Recycle, reuse, reduce was the big kind of catchphrase that was taught to us. But, in the long run, that's not really it's only putting a small dent in our overall carbon footprint. And most people don't even do it anyways, right?
Well, it's mostly the corporation's fault because they're oh, if you're not recycling, then you're the cause of all the pollution on the planet. And you're I'm just one person. Why don't you stop producing things in plastic bottles? What why don't you stop selling diesel cars? There's a lot of like individual blaming that gets passed on through capitalism. But I digress.
But yeah, I mean, teaching kids about bigger picture stuff and things that they can advocate for. I'm for it.
Yeah. I've noticed that millennial parents have been doing a pretty good job teaching kids like where food comes from, and just in general, like from my like interactions with kids, they seem to be a lot healthier. Because like we're like 90s kids, right? So we grew up on like Gushers and Tang like orange
just
juice,
all sorts of high fructose corn
garbage.
syrup.
Yeah. So to see like millennial parents like actually take like balanced diets seriously for their kids, it's already like a big improvement.
I mean, it's true. You know, we all turned 30 and our bodies started turning on us.
Should have stopped eating all of those bagel bites like a couple of years ago.
All right. Next up, Abrams bought world rights in a 7-house auction to picture books The Carpet and Sour Cherries by debut author Dezh Azad. Both picture books explore the concept of home from the perspective of an Afghan refugee child. The Carpet tells the story of a carpet that connects the family, and Sour Cherries is a love letter to the child's mother and memories of picking and preparing sour cherry delicacies together. Debut children's book illustrator Nan Sao will illustrate both titles. Publication is set for spring 2023 and spring 2024, respectively.
I'm always glad to see like picture books that are told from a quote-unquote more serious perspective. Yeah, because like I feel like adults think that children need to be sheltered, and that's true to an extent, but refugee children, they've definitely have experienced a lot of grief and trauma, and it's important to show that perspective to other readers.
Yeah, children do grow up sheltered because their family and their circumstances all they know. And I think equipping them with perspective will give them, I guess, at least the knowledge necessary to interact with kids from different backgrounds and not be a total dick about it.
Yeah. And, you know, we've had books about children who were raised by Vietnamese refugees. And as we know, like Afghanistan kind of went through the same thing. So it's nice that we're getting picture books from those refugees' perspectives.
Yeah.
All right, next up, HarperCollins acquired Called Me Adnan and another untitled middle grade novel in verse by Reem Faruqi in an exclusive submission, in which Pakistani-American Adnan Zakir dreams of making it to the ultimate table tennis championship in Florida. But when tragedy strikes, he must find a way back to the sport he loves as his family struggles to heal. Publication is slated for summer 2023.
I kind of love this because it is your typical sports story.
I know, sports story.
But with table tennis, which I don't know if you've ever seen competitive.
I was going to say, like, don't the Chinese dominate that sport?
They do. I don't know if you've seen competitive table tennis, but it gets pretty intense. I like watching it during the Olympics because I watched actually there's a really great documentary called Topspin about
Topspin
about the American ping pong team, which is it's a bunch of Chinese kids, Indian kids too, I think, just Asian kids in general. For some reason we're good at net sports, right? That's like the one sport our parents let us play because I guess it's cheap, classy, cheap. That's probably it.
Yeah, it's cheap. And also, like, for some reason, like if you go to Japan or Korea, like you see a ping pong table at an inn or kind of like their recreation centers. So that's what you do when you're bored. You just play ping pong.
I'm terrible at ping pong. I'm not
Me
good
too.
at the balls are too small. The paddles are too small. I mean, I'm not good at tennis neither, so that's not really an excuse. I'm just,
Listen, I had a ping pong table growing up in my house because my dad wanted us to exercise more and literally only used it ever when we hosted people at our house. Never used it for myself. Even after years of having it in the house, like I can't rally for more than like 2 or 3 hits.
It's hard, which is why I appreciate the people that are really good at it, because that means that just the thought of following that tiny little ball across the table, it just seems impossible. Which is why I love that this is a sports, like a coming of age against the odds sports story, but with ping pong. And people need to know that ping pong players, table tennis players, work really hard to be really good. All right, our next deal, Scholastic bought Play the Game, the first book in a middle grade trilogy by debut author and Emmy award-winning writer-producer Amar Shah. In the novel, NBA fanatic Ram lands a ticket to HoopCon and is beaten in a mortifying one-on-one matchup in front of a crowd, including his favorite pro player. When his best friend posts the video online, Ram reaches viral infamy overnight. Publication is set for fall 2023. Oh, man.
It's a different kind of sports drama.
There's not much to go by in terms of what the overall plot will be, but I imagine it'll be a coming of age where he learns to not care about what social media thinks about him getting dunked on.
I'm so glad that social media wasn't like as prominent as it is now, because everything is recorded, everything is posted online, and it's like, ooh, just having some of your most embarrassing moments on the internet forever. It's rough.
It does seem like a nightmare scenario.
Yes, yes. All right, next up, Henry Holt acquired world rights to Chickenpox by Remy Lai, the author of Picasso and Pie in the Sky. And this was an exclusive submission. In the semi-autobiographical middle-grade graphic novel, oldest child Abby Lai is sick of her 4 annoying siblings, and it's the end of her world when all 5 kids catch chickenpox and have to be quarantined at home together 24/7 for a week. Publication is planned for winter 2025. Well, at least it's just chickenpox and not COVID.
That's true. Although
or
monkeypox. That's true. Chickenpox lasts longer though, right? It's like a month. I actually don't remember.
I have no idea. I got the vaccine twice, so I've never had it.
For chickenpox, really?
Yeah, because like what happened was like, yeah, like you get it when you were like younger.
No, I didn't. I got smallpox vaccine, but not chickenpox.
Yeah, they have a vaccine for chickenpox.
No.
Yeah.
Do they?
Yeah.
Chickenpox is something everyone gets, though. I remember getting
chickenpox. No, I totally did not get it.
Isn't that not good? Isn't adult chickenpox like way more dangerous?
I'm looking it up right now. There is a chickenpox vaccine. Varicella. And I got 2 doses of it, as recommended. So yeah, I've never had chickenpox in my life, and I'm very grateful for it.
My mind is blown right now, because I thought chickenpox was a rite of passage every kid has to go through. But now you're telling me there was a vaccine for it this whole time?
Yeah.
My parents lied to me.
Did your parents not vaccinate? Did your school not require it?
No.
No, because like literally I got pulled out of school because I did not have the second dose for the chickenpox.
Maybe this is something that was required after my time, because I'm I think half a decade older than you. Yeah, no, this is the first time I've heard of it.
Wow, look at our generation gap, Marvin, when we're literally only half a decade apart, which is pretty much nothing.
I know. I mean, it became commercially available in 1984, which was the year I was born. So maybe it wasn't like required in schools until a little bit later. I mean, I remember getting it when I was in second grade. So that would have been 1992, I want to say.
But obviously people still get chickenpox. Like, you could still get it even if you have the vaccine.
Yeah. I'm
You're just mind blown.
My world has changed overnight.
But like being quarantined with your siblings, yeah, that is. I feel more for the parents though, because they have to take care of 5 sick children.
It's like
at the same time.
It's like when lockdown happened in 2020 and all the parents were like, why are the kids here every day? I need them to go back to school. I have no me time anymore. Except now they're all sick and need you all the time. And yeah, sounds rough. But Chickenpox will, but chickenpox is not forever. And it just sounds like just a fun story about family and responsibility. All right, moving on to our next deal. Simon & Schuster bought world rights for Charlotte Huck Award honoree Shelley Anand's In This Family, a picture book about multicultural families and how they look and feel about how they look and feel. Inspired by her own multiracial, multi-ethnic, and multi-religious family. And it'll be illustrated by Minal Patel. Publication is scheduled for summer 2024.
As more families become mixed race and, multi-religious, I think this is a book that is definitely needed for those parents, All right, next up, Page Street Kids acquired world rights to When a Rhino Has to Wait, in all caps, by Dazzle Ng, and illustrated by Estrella Lorenzo. The book is about a little rhino's romp of encounters with this common charge-stopping word and how to handle it with patience. Publication is planned for winter 2025. Teaching kids patience and teaching them the importance of waiting.
If there's one thing kids hate, is not having things now.
I mean, that's true for adults as well.
That's true.
I would say it's more true for adults than kids nowadays. Just dealing with retail in the past.
Yeah. Now that I think about it, learning the value of wait is something that we never stop learning because we never learned that lesson. So let's teach the kids early so they can be better humans to each other, right?
Yeah, because we're doomed as adults. It's too late for us.
All right. Well, we've been going on for a while, so let's take a quick break to hear a message from one of our partners, and we'll be right back for the rest of our publishing news.
Hi, I'm Shinyi Pai, host of the podcast The Blue Suit. In a world full of stuff, what do we choose to hold on to? The Blue Suit is a podcast about commonplace objects and the people who transform them into something remarkable. From an inherited Chinese-English dictionary to an old calophone playing records left behind by Japanese Americans incarcerated during World War II, our podcast showcases modern-day artifacts of Asian America and what gets elevated to heirloom status. Find it by searching for The Blue Suit wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey Ryan, what's black and white and red all over?
I don't know, Ramen. Two nuns having a chainsaw fight?
Dude, inappropriate. Come on, man. This is supposed to be a podcast promo for our secret underground podcast, Quarantine Comics.
Oh, yes. Quarantine Comics, the weekly comic book club where I, ace reporter Ryan Joe,
And I, mild-mannered Ramen Sentinel,
team up to discuss some of comics' greatest works.
or just some really cool comics that we've been wanting to read.
From Alan Moore to Uzumaki,
From Maracas to Zendaya,
from Adrian Tomine to Jean Lun Yang.
you might not have heard of half the stuff that we're reading.
Or the other half is just pop culture superhero stuff.
They could just read the books with us, Ryan.
Yes, they could do that, but you could also just send us money.
No, Ryan, that's not how passion podcast projects work.
Why in the hell are we even doing this?
I'm sure we'll be back by next week's episode. So, tune in each week to Quarantine Comics. That's QTDcomics.com. Set phasers to fun.
Next up, Harper Teen bought Lena John's YA fantasy debut, and Break the Pretty Kings. Inspired by the historical Three Kingdoms of Korea, the book follows a crown princess who receives a divine gift, the ability to switch places with her future self, making her a weapon built to destroy an enemy feared by even the gods. But when that enemy kidnaps her brother, she must choose between the fate of the peninsula and those she loves. Publication is set for summer 2023. Now, I am not familiar with the Three Kingdoms of Korea.
It's different from your Three Kingdoms. I like my history with Korea and the Three Kingdoms is just like very, very vague. The thing is, like, I've watched so many historical dramas that you would think that I would remember details, but Korean history is so long and the kingdoms have changed hands so many times that it's hard to keep track. So, but this is a fantasy book, so I don't need to know my history.
Yeah, it sounds great. It sounds like it has a strong female main character who kicks ass.
And I'm always down for more Korean-inspired fantasy as well. All right, next up, HarperCollins bought world rights to Camp Scream by debut author Sarah C. Young, a chapter book series about two human kids at a summer camp for monsters and cryptids. Book 1 will be illustrated by Kelsey Eng, and the remaining books will be illustrated by Lon Cham. Publication is tentatively scheduled for summer 2024. I'm trying to remember, like, there was a cartoon show, like, a long time ago about a human kid that went to a school where it was just, like, animals. And this kind of reminds me of that. But it sounds really cute. I love seeing monsters in picture books and middle grade novels.
Yeah, I mean, cryptids are always fun, too, because they're, like, otherworldly monsters. They're like Pokemon, really. To be honest, Pokemon, probably cryptids, right?
I guess, yeah.
All right. Next up, in a 6-house auction, Penguin Workshop bought Home in the Lunchbox by debut author illustrator Cherry Mo. This picture book tells the story of June, who experiences frustration and helplessness when she moves from Hong Kong to America and cannot speak English. But food from home offers solace and connection with their classmates. Publication is slated for summer 2024. And I guess this is just, more proof that not everyone's experience is the same, because I'm sure kids now coming from Hong Kong aren't like the kids that I grew up with that came from Hong Kong, because the kids that I grew up with who came from Hong Kong were still British citizens.
I was about to say, were they able to speak British English, the Queen's English?
Yeah. But, that handover happened in 1997. So, there's a whole generation of kids who did not grow up under those systems. So I wonder if that has changed their relationship to English as well.
I feel like kids nowadays are into Asian food, though.
They are.
That is in vogue.
Yeah, which was why I think this is a good, it sounds like this is like a reverse Lunchbox Incident book where the Lunchbox actually helps the kid relate to her classmates. Because, the kids are probably like, yo, that's a bao. I love that shit, They're
like, oh, snap, that's candy from China. That's never going to come to America.
Yeah.
Like when you go abroad to Japan, you're like, I need to get the limited edition Kit Kats because they are not being sold anywhere else. All right, next up, Chronicle acquired world rights to The Rise and Falls of Jackie Chan author Kristen Mai Zhang's picture book biography, Michelle the First, How Action Hero Michelle Yeoh Danced, Acted, and Dreamed Her Own Path. And the book is illustrated by Curry Huang. This true story follows the rise of Malaysian Chinese movie star from the ballet stage to the action-packed sets of Hong Kong to the dazzling lights of Hollywood as she broke new ground while staying true to her creative self, even and especially in situations where she found she was the quote-unquote only one. Publication is set for spring 2025.
This sounds like a lot of fun. Michelle Yeoh is just the GOAT, but I do want to know how Kristen Mai Zhang got the gig of being the children's book biographer of awesome Hong Kong martial arts stars. That sounds like a pretty choice gig, if you ask me.
Yeah, definitely. And this is a reminder that you should all watch Everything Everywhere All at Once. It is a fantastic movie. You should go see it.
Yeah, totally. It still lives in my head rent free, even though I've watched it I've already watched it twice, and it's still just as good. All right. Roaring Brook and Macmillan Children's UK jointly acquired at auction middle grade fantasy Vanya and the Wild Hunt by Sangu Mandana, who is the author of the Kiki Kalira series and the Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. And we'll actually have her on the show next week for a really great author chat, so stay tuned for that. The book is pitched as Amari and the Night Brothers meets Nevermore with a touch of How to Train Your Dragon. The story follows a neurodivergent British Indian girl who is swept away to a magical school where she trains to become a monster hunter and learns to fully embrace her different and wonderful brain. Publication is set for spring 2024.
Always like seeing neurodivergent characters in children's literature. I know Kiki Kalira, she has OCD and struggles with it in the series, so it's nice that Sangu is showing more types of neurodivergent characters in her work. I really loved the Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. It was such a fun read. So I'm pretty sure this is going to be a fun read too. I love stories where you have monster hunters because, I grew up on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And I really like The Witcher, for example, and Supernatural.
Yeah, and the fact that it's a touch of How to Train Your Dragon means, at least I hope, that the main character here learns to become friends with the monsters and uses them to fight. Like Pokemon, again.
Like Pokemon.
And, we always use alternatives to the classic story of being whisked away to a magical school with like more diverse characters.
All right, next up, Charles Bridge bought world rights to Wings to Soar, a middle grade novel in verse by Tina Athaide, the author of Orange for the Sunsets. In the novel, Viva's Indian family has been expelled from Uganda and sent to a resettlement camp in England, where she and her mother and sister must wait for their father to join them. There, a determined Viva forges a community of her own while struggling with the prejudice of those around her. Publication is planned for spring 2025. Another refugee story.
Yeah, but this one, instead of depicting life after arriving as a refugee, this one is about their life in a camp, which is, by all accounts, a very harrowing experience, especially for children because it's so unstable. But equally important because, refugees don't just arrive in our countries. They go through a whole process of, being put on hold until they end up where they end up. And that's part of their story too. And being a middle grade novel, and being about kids, targeted towards kids, it's like we mentioned many times on this episode, it's important to give children more perspectives, especially in a country where it's very likely you'll run into a refugee either in school or in life, and being able to empathize with that is important.
Yeah, we've definitely read adult novels about refugees in resettlement camps, so it's nice that we're seeing a middle grade novel about it as well.
Yeah. All right, next up, HarperCollins has acquired world English rights to Navya Sings for Navaratri by Lakshmi Thomas-Mani, illustrated by Avani Dwivedi. In this picture book, an Indian-American girl named Navya is empowered to overcome her stage fright while celebrating Navaratri with her female relatives. Publication is set for summer 2024.
So Navaratri is a biannual, and it's like a Hindu festival that's observed to honor the mother goddess. I am not familiar with Navaratri, but we can always use more books about Asian holidays.
Yeah, I mean, we have so many books about the Moon Festival and Lunar New Year. I want to learn about other holidays.
I will say that most Lunar New Year books are quote-unquote Chinese New Year, and it's like, I would like to see more Lunar New Year books that are not based on Chinese New Year, like other Asian cultures who celebrate it. But I am all down for more books that show more Asian holidays, especially, like, I'm not very familiar with a lot of, like, Indian holidays.
Yeah.
So I find this pretty interesting.
It is interesting, but it is not permission to appropriate these for your own purposes. So, corporations, stay out of Navaratri.
All right, our last book deal is HarperCollins acquired world rights to A Name for Sister by Charlotte Cheng, and it will be illustrated by Sophie Dow, the illustrator of I Am Golden. The picture book is inspired by a centuries-old naming custom and explores how 5 elemental spirits help a girl and her family find the perfect name for her new baby sister. Publication is scheduled for summer 2024. Wow, this is reminding me a lot about when my mom was pregnant with my baby brother before we knew the sex of the baby. And we're just like, what are the names that we should come up with and stuff like that?
Naming conventions in Asian families is sometimes it's simple, but sometimes it's a big deal. And especially if your family follows like the more cultural traditions where, my family has we have a poem that's passed down from generation to generation that denotes what middle name our family has. So how in Chinese families, some Chinese families, there is a generational name where every single member of that family has the same either second or third word of their name. Like you have your family name, you have your generational name, and you have your name.
Yeah, my family has a naming tradition too. Depending on like if you are from the paternal side and you have a daughter, you have the first syllable of the girl's name has to start with Li, which is why like my cousin's name are like Yuri Ta and Yuri Ah. And like when we were coming up with girl names for like when my mom was pregnant, we're like, okay, like there's not a lot of names that start with Li. So like, what are we gonna do? And I was just like, I don't know. Like, can we name her like Eureka and like call her Eureka when like in the States? Of course, like we did not go with that. I think like what we settled on was Yuri Bin, but then that would have been really bad in English as well because it would have been ribbon.
That's cute.
I don't know. I'm just glad that I ended up with a baby brother and not a baby sister. So. All right, but that is a wrap on our very long list of book deals.
Yeah, this was like 4 whole pages. That's like, it's one of our longer ones for sure. And thank you all for bearing with us. We do know that sometimes authors do catch on that we're talking about their books and are very appreciative. And I guess, it's always a little weird to see authors listen to our very long episodes to find that 5-minute segment we're talking about their books. But we appreciate that you appreciate us. So, thank you.
I think what the thing is that their author friends listen to our podcast and then they're like, oh, wait, they got mentioned. And then they tag the authors. But yeah, I love seeing you guys like mention us on social media. So thank you for listening. It feels good. And yeah, it feels good.
I understand what the influencers feel when they get that, that endorphin rush when someone likes your
stuff.
stuff.
It's definitely an endorphin rush. But also, I get like a spike of anxiety afterwards. I'm like, yay, attention. Oh no, attention. Right. But we are going to move straight on to news. Breaking news from last night. Salman Rushdie was stabbed in the neck and abdomen last evening on August 12th by a man who rushed the stage as the author was about to give a lecture in West New York. It was at the Chautauqua Institution, and it is like a literary workshop or festival that Salman Rushdie goes every year. But according to his agent, Andrew Wiley, who was there at the lecture, he told AP News that Rushdie was on a ventilator and has a damaged liver, severed nerves in his arm, and he will most likely lose his eye. As of right now, I'm not sure what his condition is, but the police identified the attacker as Hadi Matar, who is 24 years old from Fairview, New Jersey, and he was arrested at the scene and is currently under investigation. But Salman Rushdie is probably like one of the most well-known author of Asian descent. He was born in Bombay to a Muslim family and was educated in the UK and lived there for some time before relocating to New York. But he's known for his Booker Prize winning novel Midnight's Children, but he is notorious for his second novel, The Satanic Verses, which was released in 1988, and it was viewed as blasphemous by many Muslims who saw a character from the book as an insult to the Prophet Muhammad. So that book was banned in Iran, and there was actually an edict calling for Rushdie's death from the late leader in Iran at the time. So Rushdie has lived in protection, witness protection kind of, in England and also in America. Throughout his career, he's gotten a lot of death threats, but they kind of like slowly faded as time went by. So this attack kind of comes as a surprise because no one was really expecting it to happen.
Yeah.
So many years after his controversial novel came out. But yeah, he was like knighted by the Queen in like 2008, and he has a lot of awards and honors under his name. So he's a very, very well-known author
Yeah, hoping for his recovery, even though, he has injuries that will probably stick with him for the rest of his life. It's been a wild few weeks in terms of like just celebrity deaths in general. But this was, going around book Twitter last night because it was happening in real time. I'm actually not super familiar with Salman Rushdie's work. I mostly know him as the former Mr. Padma Lakshmi, even though I knew that he was like a really famous author.
Yeah, his book Midnight's Children was on our very first list of possible books to read for this book club when we first formed. We just put that off because I was like, oh my God, this book is so long. I don't think I have the confidence to finish it within 1 month.
We balked at it because it was a little too literary for our tastes, I guess.
But at least 45 people were killed over the years over this book in riots and also in Rushdie's hometown. Back in the 90s, the Japanese translator for the book was stabbed to death. The Italian translator survived a knife attack in the same year. And then in 1993, the Norwegian publisher of the book was shot 3 times and luckily survived. So, this is not the first time a violent act has been committed because of this book. But, I am wishing Salman Rushdie I know a swift recovery is not possible, but, I wish him to recover well, hopefully. And, thoughts and well wishes to his family. All right. So moving on to, I guess, the big piece of news. So the DOJ versus Penguin Random House antitrust trial happened. It's still ongoing. I think it's going to probably end in the next week or so. But we covered the Penguin Random House proposal to merge with Simon & Schuster back in 2020. And I remember saying, this can't be legal. That's having 2 major publishers merge and beating out competition. I feel like this is not legal. And sure enough, the government was yeah, this is not okay. But for those of you who haven't been on book Twitter, this antitrust trial was to prevent Penguin Random House from acquiring or merging with Simon & Schuster. And the Department of Justice said that the merger will cede nearly 50% of the market for anticipated top-selling books. And it would harm competition by lowering author advances and diminishing output, creativity, and diversity. But pretty much the big 5 publishing houses are Penguin Random House, Simon & Schuster, HarperCollins, Macmillan, and Hachette. So Random House actually used to be a big publishing house. So it used to be Big 6, and then it got merged to Big 5.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. And journalist John Maher has been live tweeting the trial. It's been a wild ride. Some ridiculous things have been said during this trial. My favorite thing that I've seen pop up on Twitter, because a lot of memes and a lot of joke tweets popped up because of this trial. And the Simon & Schuster CEO, John Karp, he said that $100K in author advance is fairly small. And all the authors and lit agents were like, what the fuck? That is not true. $100K is actually a lot. But, also they should be giving more money in advances. And one of the more ridiculous things he also said was that most authors don't want a bigger advance. They want to earn out faster. And I'm like, oh my God. Less than 10% of authors earn out. So obviously a bigger advance is more desirable.
Yeah, I mean, corporate CEOs and executives lying out their butt is not new, right? And especially, like, I think the thing with like corporations is they know what they're doing. Every decision they do is vetted. The numbers are crunched. Every single piece of business they officially conduct has been like approved by like 10 different people that this is the course of action that carries the least amount of risk. Like it's a very, like, you know, in business school, we're taught to make decisions based on what will cost us the least, more often than what will make us the most money, right? So I don't know. It's interesting that this merger deal is being attacked when the one that just went through for like Discovery and Warner is like just as like nefarious, right? And that one actually cost thousands of jobs already.
Yeah, there's a lot of concern from the employees at Penguin Random House and also Simon & Schuster, because it's a question of, okay, how many imprints are they going to get rid of? How many imprints are they going to downsize? And because there's going to be a lot of overlap in positions, like how many people are they going to lay off? And the more people they lay off, the less acquisitions that they'll get. And of course, like writers of color and queer authors, they'll probably get the impact of these changes the most.
Yeah, totally. I mean, when companies merge, it's literally like Game of Thrones. It's like when two companies meet up, one of those companies coming out on top, right? Like every single department under that company, marketing, publishing, sales, it becomes like a battle royale of whose team ends up winning. And it's always one or the other. It's never really like a real merger. I remember when I used to work at Sony, I came in right after the MGM merger, and literally every department that I worked with was loyal to like a different leader of the company, and it made things a little difficult for us. And you know, like I mentioned with the Time Warner Discovery merger, like we've already seen a ton of shows and movies get cut for tax breaks or because they don't fit the company's new strategy. And you know, I don't know if you've noticed, but a lot of the content that was cut were created by or starring people of color, women of color. And you know, the new CEO who took over started hiring all his key positions, and I think it comes as no surprise that they all turn out to be white dudes.
Yeah, and it's a really complicated process with contracting as well. So like authors who have gotten book deals, like these book deals that we announce every month, if the imprint that acquired them is merging with Penguin Random House, now their book is in limbo. Is the parent company going to honor the contract, or are they going to part from it because now it's a separate company? But one of the funniest things that happened in this trial is the Penguin Random House CEO, Marcus Dole. He said, "Everything is random in publishing. Success is random. Bestsellers are random. So that is why we are the Random House." And I was like, what? Is that really why you're called Penguin Random House? I feel like that is just like an improv line. I don't think that's true. And also, like publishing, obviously there's a lot of luck involved, but not everything is random. Actually, publishers, they back a lot of celebrity books. They put a lot of money into what they think will be New York Times bestsellers. And that success is not random because they're putting money where they know they're going to recoup that profit.
Yeah, like I said, nothing corporations do is ever random, you know. There's a reason why a certain type of book gets published and why you see a lot of those types of books get published at the same time is because they make decisions based on available data telling them what will do well and what won't do well. And that's why it's important for imprints to exist that like specialize in other forms of literature from like other voices, because otherwise we're just never going to get anything new out of the industry. And When things consolidate and, crunch down, companies will always err towards being conservative. And being conservative means that new voices are pushed out.
Speaking of data, Kat Cho, the author of Once Upon a K-Prom, she compiled a bunch of data from the trial. So data on the publishing industry that these professionals released. And some of them are very vague and anecdotal, not specific at all. And this, following this trial has really taught me that people in the very, very top of publishing have no idea how publishing works. They have no idea what mid-list titles are and how much money those mid-list titles make them. They don't know how much money they earn from even top sellers at their imprints and at it's just you don't know what's bringing money to your company. So what the hell is happening?
Well, it's because that's not their job. Their job is to maximize value for their shareholders, which means they need this merger to go through because this will cause the stock price to go up. And this is the secret of corporate messaging, is they have all this data and they have all the data that you're talking about, but they pick the one or two slides that most benefit the point they're trying to make to justify the merger, which will bring value to the stockholders, not necessarily to the people who work for them or for the greater good or for the mission of their company, right? And that's just the thing. Once a company becomes a public company, it literally loses its soul, oftentimes, because their main goal becomes making more money and not about whatever they originally set out to do.
One of my favorite things that has come from this trial is this AO3 fanfic by Ash Dillon, who is the author of Press Play. So this fanfiction is titled "A Random Penguin Acquires My Ass," and it has Penguin Random House and Simon Schuster as actual humanoid characters, and there's a lot of smut in it, and it's obviously a lot of parody, and it's just been hilarious reading excerpts from it on Twitter. But you could read the entire thing on archiveofourown.org. It's pretty hilarious. I highly recommend reading it because this trial is very depressing, and it makes me wonder what the future is for publishing. It's such a this industry is dying, but at the same time, I don't know, it's an industry that's dying, but it could be saved if we come up with more innovating ways to distribute and to acquire books. But it's also you have to reform a lot and make sure you pay authors, and it's just a lot of things need to be updated in the publishing industry for it to actually thrive again.
Yeah, I mean, not just publishing, but capitalism writ large needs to be reformed somehow. We need to move past it to whatever the next system is, even if it's incremental, that solves the problem of of accumulation of wealth being the end goal of things, because it's just not working. And these things will happen again and again. We've already seen it happening in real time with the Warner merger and all of us being worried that we'll lose our HBO Max shows. It's probably going to happen in other companies as well. And, if this goes through, it'll happen with publishing. And it's not an issue that only affects publishing, but if this happens, it'll definitely affect a lot of what we report on this show. All of these book deals that have not been published yet are still in the works. All of the ones that are under Penguin Random House or Simon Schuster are suddenly in flux because merging a company isn't really merging. It's a prelude to a war, right? Yeah.
I do worry about. I'm sure the people at Simon and Schuster and Penguin Random House, there's a lot of anxiety. And of course, my thoughts and prayers to the agents out there who are getting emails from authors saying, I heard that 100K is like the minimum amount for like an advance. Is there a way that you could like get me a bigger advance? And obviously, you know, the answer is a lot more complicated than that.
I mean, it's from the mouth of an executive, so now they have to do it.
It makes me so mad that people who don't even understand their industry is at the top of the corporate ladder.
The best case scenario of this fallout is now he has to pay everyone at least $100,000 or $150,000 because he said so.
Yeah. So I highly recommend looking at the thread by John Maher, and it's at JOHNHMAHER. There's a very long thread of live tweets from the trial. It's pretty funny, but also pretty sad. But you have to take things, you know, with a light heart, because otherwise...
I know.
Yeah.
It's times like this that I'm sad that the PRH Penguin stopped tweeting, because I feel like we need him more than ever.
Well, there's Publishers Brunch, which is kind of like a joke account of like Publishers Lunch, and they've been tweeting a lot of funny stuff as well.
Oh, check that out.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, that is our wrap up on news. Thank you, everyone, for listening to this very long episode. I have no idea how long it's going to be after editing, but we've been talking for about an hour and a half now.
An hour 40 minutes according to my clock. So, but you know, half of that was F capitalism. So I'm gonna leave all that in. You know, and you listeners, you tell us if you think this episode was way too long, but I think that's fine. You know, it's our podcast. We can do whatever we want.
We can do whatever
we're not beholden to any bosses. We're never going to radio, so there's no reason for time limits. So, you know, I say whatever. In fact, if you did enjoy our extra long, supersized podcast, let us know by giving us a rating and review on Apple or wherever you listen to your podcast. It really does help us. I think when people check out our shows and they see that people have rated and reviewed, it shows that, you know, people are vibing with what we're talking about, and it makes it more likely that they'll tune in as well. And, you know, we've been featured a couple of times this month on like the Apple front page, which was really nice. And so if this is the first time you're listening to one of our episodes, you picked a good one. You got some extra Marvin Reaver this week. So welcome.
Yep. All right. So our August book club pick, for those of you who aren't aware, it's Honey and Issue's Guide to Fake Dating by Adiba Jagadar. It is a YA contemporary book about a girl who comes out as bisexual to her friends, but then her really bad friends invalidate her identity, saying that she can't be bi if she only dated guys. So Honey, she panics and blurts out that she's in a relationship with a girl her friends absolutely hate, Issue Day. So Issue and Honey, they decide to fake date and, you know, kind of come up with ways they can both benefit from this relationship. And like fake dating goes, feelings emerge. So
yeah.
I'm excited to read this. I know a lot of listeners out there also said that they're excited to read it. So we'll be talking about it at the end of the month.
Always love a good fake relationship rom-com, especially with a twist. I mean, with the title like fake dating relationship, you know there's going to be more than that. All right. Well, on that note, if you've stuck with us until the end, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Books and Boba. Just a quick final reminder that you can support our podcast, not only by rating and reviewing, but also purchasing books that we mentioned on our Books and Boba Bookshop bookstore, which is our online bookstore where we list all the books that we've read for book club, books from authors we've interviewed, and also a lot of really great curated lists on a lot of different themes that Rira has put together for you as well. So yeah, check it out. You can go to booksandboba.com and click on the bookshop link to go to our bookstore. But yeah, we'll be back next week with a author chat with Sangu Mandana about her latest novel, The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. So yeah, thanks for listening, and we'll see y'all next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for listening to Books and Boba. This podcast was hosted by Marvin Yue and Ri Ryu and edited and produced by Marvin Yue. Follow the book club on Twitter and Instagram by going to @BooksandBoba and engage with us on Goodreads on our Goodreads group. You can also check out past episodes of the podcast by going to booksandboba.com and by subscribing to us on your favorite podcast app. Don't forget, you can support Books and Boba and Asian American authors by purchasing books at our bookshop.org account. Check out the link in our show notes and also at booksandboba.com. Books and Boba is a proud member of the Potluck Podcast Collective, a collective of Asian American hosted podcasts featuring unique voices and stories from the Asian diaspora. Learn more about the collective and check out our fellow Potluck shows by visiting the website podcastpotluck.com. Thanks for listening.
Co-host the podcast Asians in Baseball alongside Naomi Ko and Scott Okamoto. Asians in Baseball is exactly what it sounds like. A podcast about the Asian and Asian Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander Americans in Major League Baseball. Every week we break down the highlights of what's going on with Asians in baseball and then take a deeper dive into the Asian and Asian Americans past and present who have shaped baseball as it is today. Whether you're Kim Eng's #1 fan or you've never even heard of Hideo Nomo, we've got something for everyone, especially for the Shohei Ohtani stans. Maybe too much for the Shohei Ohtani stans. Listen to Asians in Baseball wherever you get podcasts, part of the Potluck Podcast Collective.